who taught that sages be very careful with your words because they could lead you to bitter waters and your disciples will end up drinking those waters and it's going to do a lot of damage. So Chachamim, his harub divrechem, sages, be careful with your words. One has to be careful with one's words in two respects. First of all, there are occasions when there is a reason. Very seldom does the Torah actually give reasons for the mitzvot, but in some occasions it does give reasons, and a person looks at those reasons and decides that they don't apply to him. A famous case, of course, is King Solomon, who read that a king should not have too many wives because they will turn his heart away from God. And he says, well, surely in my wisdom, that's not going to happen. I'm too clever for all of that. I'm a very wise person. So this doesn't apply to me. But in fact, it applied to him as well, because as the Torah goes on to state very sadly, that in his later years, he came unstuck from his wives. Or alternatively, there's no reason which is given by the Torah, and one decides that you understand the reason, and the reason is completely wrong. Remember the old people always used to say, and I don't understand why you shouldn't be able to drive a car. In the old days, you had to hitch up a horse, and it was a lot of hard work and one thing another. Today, you just press a button and the engine purrs over, etc. There's no work involved. So you have a particular concept of labor, of work, and you arrive at what's permitted or what's forbidden based upon that. And it so happens that the premise is completely wrong. So therefore, be very careful with your words, because you teach things, and as a consequence of those teachings, others are going to follow, and you just don't know where it's going to lead. There's an inherent problem with this mission over here, because on the one hand, one has to be very careful with one's words, but on the other hand, one is also required, every single person is required to find their own way and understanding of Torah. Everybody has to find their own chidush, their chidushim, their new and innovative ideas. They have to be able to bring out from Torah things which have not been brought up by anyone else. So the question here then is, how do you know that what you're teaching is the real McCoy, that you've actually got it right? How do you know that you have not, because of your own mental construct, your own understanding of Torah, you are actually beginning to develop an understanding, theories, explanations, etc., that are completely off-piste, and others are going to follow it. And you see, when I've seen this, we've seen this in some of the, the great movements within Judaism and originally in conservative reform, etc. The people were the initiators were real thinkers. They engaged with Torah. They had to engage with modern world, etc., and they had to arrive at certain kinds of understandings and conclusions. But look what happened down the line. And that's the fundamental problem, that you want to be able to teach. But so Avtalion says, well, just a second, before you open your mouth, and you just be careful of where this might lead to. Be careful with your words. You just don't understand how people are going to take it. And that, by the way, happens to be the problem with sermons as well, because everybody interprets it the way they believe it should be interpreted, which is sometimes quite the opposite of what you actually thought you were trying to say. But we'll come back to that later.